right, excited to be here. I'm going to go pretty fast through a lot of things. I mainly want to give you a quick Filecoin update. I want to talk about a set of exciting areas that I think are really cool in the moment. And then I want to conclude with a bunch of advice for you as builders. This is a very critical time. And so I want to try and give you some of my thinking around what matters in the next few years and how you can position yourself to do as well as you can. So again, thank you so much for the huddle, folks, and for everybody organizing FILBangalore. This is the third FILBangalore ever, and I think it's the biggest. It's been really, really awesome to get to meet and talk to a lot of people here. Super excited to be here with you. Yeah, huge round of applause for huddle. All right, let's talk about Filecoin PMF. Filecoin is a crypto power storage network. I think everybody here already is pretty familiar with it. The rough plan that we've been following is this, what we call the Filecoin master plan, which is step one, build the world's largest decentralized storage network. We've done that already, which is huge kudos to the community. Step two, we want to onboard and safeguard humanity's data. We've done an enormous amount of work here, bringing online tons of data sets around the world, and this continues to grow at a pretty fast pace. And the third is to bring compute to the data, enabling large-scale applications to come into Web3. So far, we haven't seen truly massive scale applications in Web3 at the level of Web2, and this is what this is about, enabling the exabytes of capacity in the Filecoin network to then power massive scale applications in the long term. So when you think about what Filecoin and a lot of infrastructure networks are doing, is to build a decentralized cloud to replace a centralized cloud. This is what's known in computer technology paradigm shifts as a new innovative paradigm coming in to eat the current market. And you have to start that environment by focusing on specific value propositions that are different from the existing incumbents and a massive cost reduction. When you think about Filecoin as a network with businesses, there's a number of different segments around Filecoin. Things like the Web3 storage market and being able to store various assets on chain. The Web2 storage market, so this means being able to store all of the kinds of data normal Web2 applications store. So everything from cold storage and archival to scientific data sets to object storage, all kinds of things. Then you can think about building Filecoin-specific applications. So this means on-chain systems and applications built on top of the network. And then finally, things like Filecoin L2s, when you're building entire new storage services or computing paradigm services on top of the Filecoin primitives given to you by the blockchain. You can think of the Filecoin economy as an island network where you think about the internal business of the network and things in the economy and currency in terms of like internal transactions. You can think of consumption or burn, and then you can think of exports and imports. And you can use this cryptoeconomic structure to think about how to connect this economy to other economies. So you can think of the Filecoin economy serving a whole bunch of other markets around the world. So the network is currently focusing on 4 specific markets: Web2 large-scale storage, Web2 object storage, Web3 object storage, and Web3 chain storage. These are pretty different markets. You can think of the Web2 ones, standard things that a lot of participants are familiar with. You can think of here offering similar storage environments as what you would find in the normal cloud. Then you can think of Web3 object storage as similar to that, but now introducing the key features that Web3 enables, things like verifiability, proofs, on and off-chain payments, being able to have automated smart contracts around the data, and so on. And you can think of a lot of the activity in the last few years as being centered around this, is what happens when you enable normal storage to become verifiable in this way. And then a new market that is kind of emerging, which is to do all of the chain storage itself directly on the network. So this means take all blockchains as they exist now and onboard them into the Filecoin network and enable like full random access, verifiability, and so on, and all the normal things that we offer in the object storage model, but now for all of the chain data from any blockchain. And so you can think of here as a very large landscape with lots of different blockchains out there that can now store all of their data directly on Filecoin. These are pretty different markets. They require different different kinds of features, different kinds of properties, and so on. So these are really served by different applications or different L2s. I'll go into that a little bit later. You can think of the broad Filecoin storage and retrieval lifecycle as this, where there's a set of clients and storage providers that are mediated by a set of on-ramps. And you can think of, clients are storing through those on-ramps to the storage providers, and then they're retrieving through a set of retrieval providers. So I mentioned the L2 apps and networks. So in the bringing of computation to the data, FVM enabled a whole range of L2s to be built on top of Filecoin. And so that enabled a whole range of other applications or computing systems to be built directly on the chain. And so that means that when you think about these markets and you think about the storage providers being able to serve those markets, the Filecoin network enables, the L1 chain bringing together those SPs through things like proofs, the block rewards, the chain coordination, the smart contracts, the DeFi liquidity, and so on. All of those components bring together the storage providers and create a massive scale storage pool to support these use cases. But in order to adapt the network to meet the requirements of those use cases, you need these L2 or applications on top that are orienting towards those specific markets. And so one of the really cool shifts that's happened in the Filecoin community in the last couple of years is these specific L2 and application groups are now scaling with their own sets of users. And I think you've seen a number of them already today. And these are orienting against specific markets and going after those particular things instead of trying to cover the whole base. So this is a way of effectively, as a whole community, dividing and conquering all of the different parts of the storage lifecycle. A lot of these are built on IPC, which is a scaling framework that we built in the Filecoin network. This enables all kinds of large scale scalability in blockchains and enables L2s, L3s, and so on. And you can think of the whole community as targeting becoming the storage layer for these massive, the whole blockchain industry, where you think of all of the other networks and communities out there now starting to store huge amounts of data and using Filecoin to power them. So this is a great era for Filecoin developers. I'm going to highlight a few key programs that have emerged in the last year or two that I think can support a lot of you. Many of you are already participating in these. So the first one I'll highlight is FIL-Builders, which is a community supporting a lot of devs building on Filecoin. If you are either already a Filecoin dev or interested in becoming one, this is like your first stop. Like, you should go and connect with this group. They have all kinds of good documentation and programs to support you. The second one that I highlight is PL Andres the Gathering. This is a community call that brings together, every month a whole range of leaders across the space to update on lots of different projects that are going on. And so this gives you the latest up-to-date information happening across a wide swath of projects. And here you can both watch all of the updates that are there, but you can also come and present your own work here. So you can reach out to the folks organizing this if you want to present something. The third thing I'll mention is Filecoin now has a retro PGF program inspired by the Optimism retro PGF program. So you can now build a lot of things that are public goods, contribute them to the network, and then get rewarded for doing so by then submitting applications to retro PGF. So this has been super impactful already. We had one round earlier in the year. We're in the middle of voting for round 2, and we'll have the results on round 2 pretty soon. But this is enabling a lot of participants around the world to contribute to Filecoin and then get rewarded. The last one I'll mention is the PL Dev Guild. You saw a presentation about this earlier today. This is one of the coolest things that I'm most excited about, which is this is a community that enables a lot of open source contributors to achieve mentorship in contributing to specific projects. So this means if you out there like to contribute to open source and want to support different projects, but you don't know where to get started, or you know where to get started, but you need some amount of mentorship to be able to become really productive, the PL Dev Guild is here to support you. And it's also here to support you with funding. So the whole idea is to provide a pathway for groups to fund open source developers contributing to public goods. And this is what's really cool about this is that we announced this last year in FILBangalore here, and we shipped it to the whole world from here. And now it is out there and live. I think the first cohort is something, or the last couple of cohorts have been, I think, 40 people or so. So from hundreds of applications, 40 people got selected and have been participating in the guild. And the rewards range from, on the low end, something like $120 all the way to $2,000 per month. So this is really, it starts looking like an actual job for many people out there if you contribute really greatly. And so this means your contributions get rated by your mentors and so on, and then you get rewards in a retro PGF style as well. So this is a great starting point for a lot of groups out there. And the cool thing here is that you can do this either part-time or full-time. So you can engage on this part-time while you're studying or working somewhere else, or you can do this full-time and contribute to open source all the time. Cool. So I'm going to highlight a few things that I'm excited about happening across the crypto space. And then I'm going to conclude with some advice for you as builders. So first off, I want to highlight DePIN in general. So not only has DePIN started to transform the infrastructure of the network, we've seen this happening through Filecoin and a few other groups. Want to here give huge kudos to Huddle for doing the RTC protocol and building a people-powered network. This is an example of using crypto-powered infrastructure to disrupt massive systems out there. So I think today most people forget just how powerful these crypto economic incentives are. You can use these DePIN style models to dramatically change the way that industries around the world operate. And so we've seen this with the storage industry with Filecoin. We've seen this. We're now starting to see it with the AV and RTC infrastructure with Huddle. But another thing that I want to plant in your mind is the ability to now use DePIN networks for changing traditional industries. And so one of the things that one of the networks that I'm most excited about is Glow, which is now currently scaling solar production using a DePIN network. So the Glow network uses crypto incentives to get people around the world to install way more solar. And so this is a graph in the bottom right of Glow as a network growing, and it's now producing 1.5 has produced totally about 1.5 megawatts. No, actually gigawatts. 1.5 gigawatts. That's insane. That's like massive amount of power output. And you can see the network is growing exponentially, which is incredibly promising. So if we can get this right, you can have crypto dramatically improving the world. And so this is kind of the power that you have with DePIN networks. So I would strongly encourage you to leverage these systems to solve massive scale problems. And one of the cool things is that a lot of this change is happening here in India. So both Huddle started here, and it's a network powered by a lot of the people here. But Glow is also growing the solar output produced here. There's massive solar farms here being powering the Glow network. The next thing I want to highlight is DeSci. So DeSci is still a fairly nascent field, but this is a large community coming together to figure out how can you improve the way the scientific process happens, the way that research and development happens, to support researchers and scientists around the world to do their research faster, better, with more connectivity, with better funding, and so on. At the end of the day, crypto brings things like verifiability, decentralization, better funding flows, and these are critical things that can greatly improve how science works today. And there's a large ecosystem growing here developing this. So again, still fairly nascent, but it has grown a lot in the last couple of years. And I think 2025 is going to be a pretty big year for DeSci, so highly recommend you check it out. And again, everything from changing how the scientific process itself works in terms of how the documents and artifacts get published, to how peer review happens, to how rewards flow to scientists, all kinds of things, to how the science itself gets funded, how grants happen, all this sort of stuff is fair game for DeSci, and lots of communities around the world are starting to make this sort of change. The next thing I want to highlight is network states on on-chain cities. So probably a lot of you are familiar with Balaji's network state model. I think that this is a super important set of ideas that are bringing a sense of innovation that has been pretty difficult for the last few decades. So the world has not been able to create new countries in quite a long time because basically most of the land is already culled. So you can't really create a new country today without kind of like entering into some kind of conflict with over land. And so what the network state does is it reframes that perspective entirely by enabling participants to bind together in terms of similar ideas, similar perspectives, similar visions, and create the equivalent of countries, but without having to couple them to land, and being able to bring together people around the world that want to organize themselves in a different way, and to do so over the network. So I think it's a super compelling, powerful idea, and a lot of us are pretty excited about it and building towards it. This also gave rise to the network cities or pop-up cities movement. started with Suzalu and now FIL-City and a few others, where you can bring it's kind of inspired by the network state in terms of bringing together a set of participants. But what pop-up cities do is they bring together those people in a specific location for a period of time, and you're able to greatly accelerate people's growth, their learning. Lots of projects come out of this. And so these are starting to happen all over the world. And it's been amazing to see the level of acceleration that individuals get out of this. So this is kind of like a super interesting paradigm for improving how people live, improving how people coordinate, work, and so on. So highly recommend you check these out. And now we're starting to see an example of a pop-up city type model or a network state style inspired thing now transforming existing countries. So Crecimiento and Aleph are Crecimiento is a movement to upgrade the Argentinian economy with crypto, and it's doing that by starting a pop-up city called Aleph and enabling lots of on-chain primitives to come in and improve the local economy. Speaking of pop-up cities, next week Aleph kicks off. So this is if you're intrigued by the pop-up city concept. I invite all of you to come and join us in Buenos Aires. A lot of us will be there for a couple of weeks from the 9th through the 20th. There will be, a Solidity boot camp, a ZK, a set of ZK boot camps, lots of different participation around that. There's hackathons, there's a whole range of events. There's an AI day, a governance day. Pop-up cities tend to be like highly flexible in terms of lots of events being added. So definitely check out the calendar and definitely come out to Buenos Aires. And one of the coolest ideas that came out of Crecimiento and Aleph is the idea of creating an on-chain city, meaning build a lot of the infrastructure and primitives that enable cities to operate and do that within a specific blockchain context to build things like property registries, corporate registries, credit, identity systems, and so on directly on chain. And what that enables is that it enables lots of different applications that today have very hard product market fit around the world in a lot of different industries to just concentrate on a particular specific jurisdiction and upgrade it. So this would enable also forming new, very successful economic infrastructure that could be exported to the rest of the world. So you can think of financial centers like Singapore and London and Dubai and New York as effectively creating a good jurisdiction for trade to then have that be expanded out to the rest of the world. And so this on-chain city concept enables that, but in a concrete blockchain context. The last thing I'll mention here is there's a lot happening with AI, of course, as you've seen. There's some amount happening in a kind of decentralized AI, crypto, and so on. But really, like the big story here is that AI, the models are now getting intelligent enough to reconfigure how entire organizations and economies operate. This is going to continue happening, and over the next few years, you'll see major swaths of how the world works being rewritten on top of these new primitives. This is probably the most important thing happening to all of the world at the moment. So you have to be on top of this. You have to be on top of how these things are going to change how you work, they're going to change your organizations, and so on. The models that we have today are already smart enough to be co-workers, in a sense. And so within a few years, they'll be smart enough to have entire organizations built just through AI models. And that's a major paradigm shift for the planet. On top of that, we have a set of robotics infrastructure being developed, and we'll likely have thousands to potentially millions of humanoids by 2030 or 2035. And so this means that huge scale production is now going to be able to be completely automated at the same time. So this is, again, is another major reframing of how the world is going to work. And we are starting to see some amount of this come into crypto, both through things like decentralized training or decentralized inference. But what I think is going to be dramatically more impactful here is enabling on-chain agents to have property rights, to have the ability to interact with others, and so on. And while we're starting to see the beginnings of that in the last year, we saw that with Token Terminal and other components, that's likely going to explode in 2025, 2026, and certainly by 2028. We're going to be staring down a whole range of systems and networks and so on that are entirely run on these new AI models. And so this is what I think is the strongest AI and crypto connectivity is enabling a safe deployment path that is verifiable, that is aligned with human values, and that enables these new powerful primitives to scale the economy and scale interactions, but to do so in a way that's aligned with our goals. And crypto enables us to do that because of the verifiability components in our stack. So we can prove that certain things have happened a certain way, or we can have automated policy stop certain processes. So I think this is going to be like really, really, really impactful. Now, with that, I want to give kind of a bit of advice for builders. So the world is changing extremely quickly. So one of the things that a lot of people here in this room have asked me is like, well, how do I deal with this? Like, am I even going to have a job in like 3 years or 10 years? No matter how aggressive or optimistic you are about these timelines, whether it's a few years from now or a decade or 2 decades from now, these massive changes are going to rewrite how a lot of things operate. So you have to like stay ahead of the curve here. Like you have to observe how these changes are arriving, take seriously the fact that we are achieving AGI and ASI is probably not far behind that. Whether it's going to take 2 to 3 years as the optimists think, or it's going to take 5 to 10 years or 15 years as the pessimists think, just understand that that timeline has shrunk dramatically since over the last 10 years. So have a lot of humility here. A lot of people tend to think that models are not going to be able to do something, but the graph on the bottom left shows you how for every major task set that the AI community has gone after, the models go from being completely incompetent to having superhuman capabilities within a year or two. So we have a massive shift in the speed at which models get better. So when you couple those models with robotics, like that really is going to change how the world works. And so I think here, what we need to do is kind of look ahead and serve these waves of change. Leverage these systems, learn from them, use them, incorporate them into your workflow. But you really have to kind of zoom out and understand that most of what you've been taught in the last 10, 15 years is for a world that was very different. The world of 10, 20 years ago, which informed all of what you were taught, is disappearing over time and is going to be replaced by a different sort of world. And so you have to really think for yourself and think about what is going to matter here. And so again, use these systems to learn as fast as you can. Use these systems to do a lot of your work in your day-to-day. Think about how to reconfigure your organizations to adapt and leverage these systems. Start operating with these systems as co-workers and so on. And then think about how to orient these things towards good outcomes, because what we're talking about here is a species level change. So this could, of course, go in a bad direction. And so it's really critical that a lot of us working on this oriented towards a good, safe upgrade trajectory. But the broad point is really don't ignore the shift that is happening now, and stay ahead of it. Reconfigure yourself and your workflows and your organization and your workflows to leverage all of these shifts. So at the end of the day, you have to think about this set of possible futures. What a lot of people think is probable, it's just a very small path in a much wider cone of plausibility and possibility. So there are things that are possible that just nobody today thinks are plausible at all. And it tends to be that the future tends to unfold in that area, in the area between the plausible and the possible, where certain things are just so significantly different that today you don't predict them. And you do have a lot of agency in orienting these set of outcomes towards preferable visions. So, work on this. So I want to conclude with some opportunities for you. We've built a lot of the PL network to build infrastructure and systems to support you as builders, you as founders, as developers, as product builders, as learners. And so really leverage the infrastructure built by the PL network to support your day-to-day activity, whether it's in your company or in your community or in your group or whatever. Know that we have a lot of traditional vanilla style support programs for traditional companies, but we also now have a lot of on-chain primitives to support new ways of working, like these kind of contribute to open source and get paid in crypto directly, or get grants directly on chain, or retro funding, and all of this kind of infrastructure. PL as a network, has around 600 teams in the network and a few thousand people. The combined relations of all of the companies and networks in the ecosystem is on the 20 billion scale. And just for reference, YC is 600, so we're not that far away. We're about a 40x scale from YC, which is a kind of pretty awesome. And the way that PL is organized is that we have a whole bunch of infrastructure programs for you, supporting a set of different focus areas, and these focus areas orient groups and teams and people towards different industries. We have a whole range of software tools for you. So as an individual participant, you can leverage all of the tooling that we built to support your R&D, your projects, your teams. You can find all of the teams in the network, and a lot of these list jobs in a broad job board. So if you one opportunity that the network can support for you is giving you a career path. So you can find a lot of different possible jobs directly here on the PL job board. And you can also find a listing of all of the teams and learn about them and join them and so on. I'll mention the Dev Guild again. You can join this or join the community or start contributing. And the last thing I'll mention is we also have built a whole bunch of infrastructure for startups, enabling startups to get started. Everything from like early hackathon work to next step grants to accelerators to VC and so on. We've been supporting a lot of the developers here in India for a bunch of years. We've worked very closely with ETH Global, and it's been really awesome to see how many companies got started here in India and went through either ETH Global hackathons or some other program and ended up getting supported by PL network accelerators or other systems. So it's been really, really awesome to see all of the kind of growth that has happened over time. And I tend to think about this and organize it in terms of like these different stages for starting companies. And we've been building different kind of infrastructure for each of these stages. So no matter where you are in the developer cycle or builder cycle, you can find some program to help you. So definitely check that out. The last thing I'll plug here is we partnered with GPC to build the next GPC accelerator is going to start very soon, and it's going to be focused on new financial infrastructure, like using the primitives of crypto and Web3 to rebuild how economies work. So if you're building a startup in that area, apply to get backed. Of course, GPC has a broad application as well. So no matter what you're building, if you want a support from like this amazing network of mentors, apply to the accelerator. Look for the info here on Twitter. And there's going to be a request for startups that ships out with this early next week that you can see. There's lots of exciting things getting built, especially in the on-chain city concept.